Good morning, guys. Welcome to another week of Computer Science Online, and today we're going to change tact quite substantially and start focusing on something called the mini project. Okay, so the rationale for the mini project. So the idea of the mini project is to help understand the requirements of the Year 2 project, which you've recently submitted proposals for in Teams, in terms of the stages of development of a program, an application, from analysis through to design to implementation, testing, and so on. Okay. Also, hopefully going to introduce some skills that you're going to need to help you document your project next year. So in terms of Microsoft Word, it's quite a substantial report that you have to produce, and you have to be aware of how to format that report and some useful tools within Word to help you do that in a professional way. Also, at various points during the Year 2 project, you're going to be expected to show aspects of design work and produce various diagrams like hierarchy charts, for example. And so, there are various bits of software which are helpful to do that, and if you can sort of get familiar and master those skills now, it's going to save you some time next year. The other thing that we can do here is, rather than you following tutorials this week, you can actually have a chance to reflect on the skills that you've developed and have a go at applying them to actually creating a useful program. The GUI skills, which you've done a lot of recently, working with Windows Forms, and then last week's skills. A challenge, maybe more of a challenge on that particular side of things there, but you could maybe begin to think about how you could create this particular application using an OO approach, which would be really interesting and a challenge for some of you to get your teeth into. The last really important kind of reason for doing this mini project is that it gives you a flavour of time management and working to a deadline, which are also very, very important skills if you're going to be successful in Year 2. Okay, so the Year 2 project, it mirrors the development life cycle that we've covered in class. So where we start in the analysis stage, and then we work through this life cycle and ultimately end up with a finished product being produced at the end of testing. Okay, so the project itself divides into these 5 areas. Instead of evolution, though, it's the evaluation is the final stage that you guys will complete in the project. Okay, so our mini project is going to, in a very, very light-hearted way, sort of mirror some of the key aspects of each stage in the life cycle. Okay, so if we go to the analysis stage first, so in a project where you've got a client and then you've got a developer, the developer in this case being you, well, your job in analysis is to understand exactly what the client needs their system to do, what features it needs to have to overcome the problem that they are facing. And that can be quite tricky at the start of the project because the client might not always be sure about exactly what they want, how substantial the problem is, and what the exact solution is. From your point of view, you're coming into this completely blind as well, and you need to find out and be confident you understand what they actually need so that you then develop them the right solution. Okay, so if we take this situation for the mini project, at the minute I'm going to role play the client. Okay, so I'm going to role play the client for this particular mini project. You guys have absolutely no idea what I want you to make and produce and what my problem is. Okay, so the analysis stage is all about establishing what the product is going to do, and what we need to think about here is how are you going to go about getting that understanding. Now, before we talk about the methods of actually getting that understanding, this is quite a nice diagram, cartoon strip to look through, because it's a very big problem historically in development projects, is this having this shared understanding about what exactly is needed to overcome the problem, and how everyone will have their own views and understanding, and it's very hard to get everyone to sort of pull together and focus in on a shared understanding. And if you are going to be successful in a project, then communication is going to be really key to making sure that both you and your client understand exactly what's going to be delivered. Okay, so that's a key thing to get across. Communication is going to be really important to this project. Once you've actually established and come to an understanding of what you think your client wants, you're then going to produce, and this is the main goal of analysis, is to produce a set of objectives. We call them client requirements, which categorically outline very specifically exactly what your intended solution is going to include, what the actual program is going to do, and what it's going to include. Okay, that hopefully your client, in this case myself, will also agree with. Okay, and that becomes the foundation of the design stage then, and we move on to the next. We move into that stage. So in analysis then, so how do you actually go about establishing from a blank sheet of paper what the client will want in their system? Well, you've got different tools and techniques that you can use to do this. Now in your year 2 projects, you're going to have to decide which ones are going to be most appropriate to use. You don't need to use all of them. One that's definitely going to be standardized to all, and I'm talking about the wrong slide here. One that's going to be standardized to them all is the interview. Okay, so the interview is going to be really important for every project, and you will be expected to interview your client and ask them questions about their particular system that they use currently, what problems they have with it, and what kind of functions, what kind of features they'd like to see in the system that you're going to develop for them. Okay, so the interview is a very good technique. It's also good for establishing a relationship. It's good because it's very qualitative in terms of data, so you can get long, detailed answers. You can clarify points, things that you're not sure of as the analyst, you can hopefully get a really good in-depth understanding if you use that technique correctly. Observation could be a technique that you use to help gain understanding. So it might be that you actually go into the business that the client works within, and you actually watch how their system works, and you record step by step all the details involved in that system. It helps you understand it. It also helps you identify potential issues that your system might be able to have solutions for. So observation is another technique that you could choose to use. Okay, existing documentation. So you could ask the client for what kind of existing information, what systems they use, what documents they have, and they can also be useful to helping you complete your analysis. And then finally, questionnaires are very, very useful when you have a large number of users potentially involved in this project, and so you might ask them about their opinion about what the new system should have in it, what their kind of skill level is, what features they'd like to see, and so on. Okay, so but the one that we're going to use in the mini project is the interview. Okay, to keep things simple, so we're going to do the interview. In terms of doing the interview then, and to try and recreate this in the best way possible, then the whole point of interview is that there is that ability there to be able to ask and to clarify points and to ask further questions. So for that reason, I'm actually going to do this live in Teams tomorrow at the time specified. Okay, so if you can connect to Teams please and be ready, I will answer the questions that you fire at me about this particular mini project. Okay, now just to give you some insight and to help you begin to formulate some questions, the current system that I want you to sort of focus on improving is my way of playing the game tic-tac-toe, otherwise known as noughts and crosses. Okay, my problem includes at the minute that I don't always have an opponent to play against, there are times when I want to play tic-tac-toe but I can't actually find someone to play against, so I would like something to resolve that issue. I also have to keep, when I do get a chance to play against another opponent, I have to manually record the scores, and obviously over time that can lead to disputes over how many games have been won by my opponents. And obviously over time I'm wasting quite a lot of paper and ink. Okay, so I'd say that they are my major problems at the minute. Now obviously this is a slightly exaggerated example. It's not meant to be so serious, but the point is it's giving you a bit of an idea now about my particular problem that I want you to develop a system to solve. So what I'm going to ask you to do today, and you've got an analysis guide sheet to help you with this, is to just generate questions that you would like me to answer in the live interview tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to set this as an assignment, and if you can just submit a Word document that looks something along these lines. You can already see that the first question is in there. So just asking me about issues with the Postgres system. I've almost already answered that in some ways, but I want you to develop your own questions, because at the minute, if I ask you to go ahead and start actually designing this program, to actually make this program, I think some of you would still be saying, well, can we clarify exactly what features and functions it needs? You're not sure yet, and it's your job to actually find that out. And the way you're going to find that out is by asking me questions and clarifying understanding. Okay, so that's why we're going to do the live interview, because it's the most important investigation technique to use in analysis. So your job today: generate those questions, put them into that Word document, and then resubmit them in the assignments box by midday tomorrow, and then we'll do the live interview at 3 o'clock. I'll answer as many of the submitted questions as I can, and you guys can fire questions through chat of anything that you want me to clarify. Okay, but for the sake of this assignment, just to kind of remind you again, I'm acting as the client. This is a mini project, so we're just sort of very lightly touching on some of the key skills that you need, and hopefully we're going to create quite a fun application at the end of it as well. So yeah, that's everything from me for today. Please make sure you get those interview questions submitted ASAP, and there's no stupid question to ask. Okay, so just fire them in.